Over the course of more than half a century, Britt Ekland has been haunted by a particular scene from The Wicker Man. This is not due to any otherworldly occurrences. It is a scene that was made with the intention of titillating, shocking, and bolstering the uncanny attraction of pagan Summer Isle. Nevertheless, it turned out to be a personal betrayal for Ekland. To this day, she continues to refuse to sign photographs that were taken at that time, despite the fact that a promise was broken and a body double was employed. But let's go back in time and see how this legendary horror movie, which is frequently referred to as the Citizen Kane of the genre, became one of the most misunderstood, mishandled, and mythologized works in the history of British cinema. The film The Wicker Man, which was released in 1973, is unlike any other horror movie that was on the market at the time. There will be no axe-wielding maniacs or blood-splattered scream queens in this place. On the contrary, it presented a nightmare that was drenched in sunlight and was adorned with maypoles, folk songs, and fertility rituals. Indeed, belief was at the heart of the matter. This includes what we believe, the reasons we think it, and the consequences that arise when those views come into conflict with one another. Edward Woodward plays the role of Sergeant Neil Howie, a devoted Christian who is dispatched to the remote Scottish island of Summer Isle to investigate the abduction of a little girl called Rowan Morrison. The film was directed by Robin Hardy and written by Anthony Schaefer. Nevertheless, rather than discovering clues, he discovers contradictions. Frogs are stuffed into people's mouths as a form of folk medicine. The people of the town deny that Rowan ever existed, and the children are taught about the symbolism of phallic symbols in school. Clearly, there is something that is wrong in this Eden. The character of Howie, who is portrayed by Woodward with a growing sense of despair, is a representation of law, order, and religious conviction. Nonetheless, he is marching toward a spiritual catch-22. The inhabitants of the island, who are commanded by the silky-voiced Lord Summer Isle, who is portrayed by Christopher Lee with a menacing allure, worship the ancient gods of the Celtic religion and accept sexuality as an inherent component of normal life. Not only is the island removed from the grid, but it is also completely removed from the moral compass. This wasn't just another horror gig for Christopher Lee, it was something special. The Wicker Man was a departure from his previous work in Hammer horror films, in which he had established a name for himself, most notably from his role as Dracula. Deeply literate, intelligent, and eerie all at the same time. According to Lee, it was the best film he had ever made, and he also thought it was the best performance he had offered. So much so that he labored without receiving anything, and even paid for his own press tour across the United States, doing things like appearing on obscure Iowa morning shows just to get the word out. During this time, the film was produced on a very limited budget because the British film industry was going through a difficult time. It was necessary for the new ownership of British Lion Films to demonstrate that they were committed to the production of content once the company had been acquired. What is the end result? An anxious shoot that took place in the late autumn and had to act as if it were spring. To be more specific, those trees that are blooming, wholly fabricated. In order to create the illusion of a harvest season that did not actually take place, they affixed leaves to bare branches and brought in apple trees that they had constructed themselves. During the breaks between takes, the performers, who were frequently shivering, chewed on ice cubes in order to keep their breath from appearing on camera. It was magic with a cheap budget, and it was successful. However, there was some magic going on behind the scenes. We are going to go on to that notorious naked scene. In one of the most talked about sequences in the history of horror, Britt Ekland plays the role of Willow McGregor, the seductive daughter of the landlord. She attempts to charm Howie through the wall of the bedroom. Despite the fact that it is sensual, odd, and symbolic, it is also the source of the most problematic betrayal in the movie. It was agreed upon by Ekland, who was pregnant at the time of filming, that she would only shoot naked from the waist up. It was her limit at that point. But after she left the stage, the filmmakers discreetly recruited a body double, either a Glasgow stripper or an exotic dancer, depending on who you ask, to shoot full-body rear shots of Willow's hypnotic dance. These photos were taken after she had departed the set. They then filmed the scene, added a blonde wig to the duplicate, and edited it so that it blended in perfectly with the rest of the movie. It wasn't until the movie was released that Ekland found out about it. In her own words, she was utterly heartbroken. She was left feeling deceived and betrayed, and she permanently separated herself from the movie. The reason she continues to refuse to sign stills from that sequence is because, as she has explained to her supporters, that is not who she is. Adding insult to injury, her dialogue was also dubbed by jazz singer Annie Ross without her permission, since the producers did not like her Scottish accent. This was done without taking her approval into consideration. Later on, Ekland made a joke about the body duplicate having the most hideous and enormous bottom in the entire world. She also expressed regret that she did not do the part herself, stating that her own bottom was much smaller and much prettier. According to reports, Ekland's boyfriend at the time attempted to prevent the film from being released altogether because he was so upset by the naked scene, despite the fact that it was legally not her that was on screen. Let's take a step back from the drama and discuss the reasons why that particular sequence, as well as the movie overall, continues to have an impact. On the other hand, the screenwriter, Anthony Shaffer, had the intention of making a horror movie that was free of gore, monsters, and cliches. The most important question he had was, what constitutes the ideal sacrifice? The spine-tingling conclusion of the movie was sparked by that concept. Not only is Howie the sacrifice, but he is also the hero. Not because he is a wicked person, but rather because he is a good person. He is a Christian, a virgin, and an idiot who has wandered into a trap set by non-Christians. The last scene, in which Howie prays while being imprisoned inside a giant wicker effigy and set ablaze, was filmed in real life. In its entirety, the Wicker Man was a structure that stood 40 feet tall and was constructed on the cliffs of Burrowhead. Woodward, who was both clever and afraid, insisted on viewing the effigy for the very first time in person. He exhibited a genuine expression of shock. Subsequently, he stated that he had never been more terrified in his whole career. To add insult to injury, a goat that was positioned above him urinated on him as the shoot was in progress. Talk about the pain you've endured for your craft. It is possible that the most tragic event that has occurred in relation to the Wicker Man has nothing to do with goats or butt doubles, though. That is the end that awaits the movie itself. The full-length negative that was originally shot, which consisted of 99 minutes of filmmaker Robin Hardy's vision, was lost. Neither misfiled nor burned by accident as a result. According to a persistent and unsettling myth, it was purposefully destroyed and used as landfill in the construction of the M3 motorway in England. This is both a scary and disconcerting rumor. Even Christopher Lee believed that the film had been mishandled, and he placed the blame squarely on the shoulders of British Lion executive Michael Dealey. Lee, known for his commanding screen presence and discerning taste in scripts, did not mince words. According to numerous accounts, Dealey harbored a deep dislike for the movie and didn't hesitate to share his opinion. He allegedly told Lee directly that it ranked among the 10 worst films he had ever seen, a remark that stung deeply and never left Lee's memory. Whether it was a moment of brutal honesty or executive carelessness, that statement became a wedge between the two men. Dealey, for his part, would later deny ever having said such a thing. But for Lee, the damage was done. He never forgave him. The tension between artist and financier, between creative ambition and corporate judgment, became a silent thread in the film's troubled legacy. What remains today is not one film, but several versions, a patchwork of edits that reflect years of conflicting visions and studio interference. There is the original theatrical cut, trimmed to just 87 minutes to appease distributors. Then there is the more expansive director's cut, running at 95 minutes, which attempts to restore some of the film's lost atmosphere and pacing. And finally, there's the 91-minute 2013 final edit, a carefully constructed version that seeks to balance both artistic intent and narrative cohesion. Each cut offers a slightly different experience, making the film a kind of cinematic riddle, fragmented, multifaceted, and continually debated. Upon its initial release, it wasn't even seen as a major event. In fact, it was dismissed as a mere B-movie, a minor curiosity that was meant to accompany the critically acclaimed Don't Look Now. It didn't receive much in the way of marketing or media attention, and for many, it passed quietly through theaters without fanfare. But where traditional success eluded it, something else began to take shape, a cult following, slowly, copy by copy. Often through battered VHS tapes, passed from one fan to another, the film found its audience. It became a midnight movie, a whispered recommendation, a beloved oddity for those who felt let down by conventional horror. Over time, critical opinion began to shift. Scholars revisited its themes, cinephiles praised its atmosphere, and genre lovers admired its daring approach to folk horror. Eventually, critics who had once ignored or derided it began referring to it as a monumental work. It became a cornerstone of British horror cinema, not for the box office numbers it never earned, but for the eerie mood it conjured and the sense of myth it left behind. Perhaps the most powerful endorsement came from Christopher Lee himself, a man who had appeared in more horror films than most people have seen, who once declared that this was the best British horror film ever made. Coming from him, it wasn't just praise, it was canonization. Now is the moment for you to provide feedback. What do you think about the circumstances surrounding Britt Ekland? Given the circumstances of the time period, was it acceptable to utilize a body double without obtaining her full consent? Or is this an unforgivable violation of trust? In the comments section below, please share your ideas with us.